นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะพุทธังธัมมังสังฆังนะมัสสามิ Blessings. Somebody was asking earlier why a human being might be reborn as an animal. Probably a very Buddhist question. I'm not sure that non-Buddhists ask questions like that, but just brings up the reflection on the importance of appreciating being born as a human being is a very special thing. In Buddhism we say it's the fruits of our past good karma, skillful action. It's great merit, great good fortune. And why would that be? Well, because being born a human being and also meeting with the Buddhist teachings, which is very easy nowadays because of the improvements in technology and travel, then you have the chance to hear the Dhamma or read the Dhamma and practice the Dhamma and improve your mind even more. Whereas to be reborn as an animal would be great misfortune. It's actually considered a realm, a realm of misfortune because animals do it tough. If you live in the forest like us here, then you see animals, the suffering, the fear, the struggles that they go through every day, big animals, small animals. Any opportunity to get out of an animal realm, even just an animal-like state of mind, maybe even for a human to get out of that is quite hard. So if you value your human birth, they would say, in Buddhism, well then you'll do your best to preserve the human qualities that you have. You value your human birth and you really want to preserve it and improve on it as well. There's that well-known story of the lady Wisaka, one of the leading female disciples of the Buddha. It's considered to be a Sotapanna, very wise, very generous, kind person, well established in her practice of Dhamma. And she wasn't careless or heedless with her life. She knew it was important to practice the Dhamma. She respected the Buddha. But when she still was married off in her youth to a man from another family who weren't Buddhists, she had to go and live with them in their large household. And she was always uncomfortable on one level. Buddhist monks sometimes would walk past the house in the morning and stand waiting to collect alms. They'd either be ignored or they'd just be given the oldest kind of leftover rice porridge, sort of broken rice porridge, the sort of thing a family would only give to a servant or even an animal maybe. And they didn't really respect Buddhist monks, and this all stemmed from the leader of the household, Megara, who was a wealthy businessman, but he had faith in the teachings of another sect, not the Buddha. So he didn't value Buddhist monks or what they had to say or the making of giving of alms to Buddhist monks. So one day she couldn't stand it, seeing this monk being just waiting and knowing he would just be given old kind of probably mouldy old rice, not very tasty and not very attractive to eat. She said, "Oh, don't wait here, you'll only be getting old stuff." As if this was a very poor household with only poor quality alms to give, which wasn't true, of course, because they were wealthy. But by chance, the owner of the house, Migara, heard her say it and flew into a rage, because he's wealthy and he was very attached to his wealth, proud of being wealthy. He had the best food, the best clothing, the best things of that time at his fingertips. So when she said there's only old stuff here, he felt slighted. It was like disparaging, putting him down, took it personally. And he flew into this rage and started complaining, how can my daughter-in-law put me down like this, saying we've only got old stuff here, as though we're poor and needy and don't have anything. She doesn't respect me, doesn't respect the household she's living in. And the more he thought about it, the more the anger fueled him, the more he attached to his anger, you might say. He wanted to punish her, so he was thinking, well, she should just leave this household. You can't live here. If you don't appreciate me and what I've done here, you should leave. But of course everyone around her and other members of the household they weren't so angry, and they were a little bit more receptive to her good qualities. They'd already noticed how mindful she was, how generous she was, how wise she was, and they all thought that Dad, Migara, was making a mistake by wanting to send her away. He said, no, shouldn't say that, don't say that. She's a good person. And he said, well, how can she be a good person? She's putting me down in front of these bald-headed Buddhist monks. I don't even have faith in their teacher. And he called her over, he said, explain yourself, why did you say that? And she said, well, when I said there's only old things here, what I meant is you're living off the fruits of your old karma, your old merit from your past life. You have wealth, you have comfort, but you don't have any faith in the Buddha, and you're not really practicing anything significant in this life in terms of spiritual development. You're not really offering alms or doing much. So you're just using up your old karma. So that's what I mean by there's only old things here. You're not making new good karma. You're not practicing. And she answered in a very subtle but clever way, but it was true. And the businessman, probably because he was a successful businessman, probably had some good intelligence, and he thought about it and he realised, she's answering in an unusual way, not what I'd expect from a newly married daughter-in-law. So he listened, and then he questioned her further, and she started to intrigue him. He was curious. He wanted to learn about the Buddha and his teachings a bit more. And eventually she got him to invite the Buddha over and the monks over and to hear Dhamma. And she managed to inspire him to become a student of the Buddha through her own faith, but also her wisdom, good qualities. But it brings out this point, we're living on the fruits of our past good karma. Even if you never think about past lives, future lives, and you don't have much interest in that. We're living off the fruits of our good karma just today, the fact that we are wherever we are at in our life today, that we have a place to live, money, food, safety, security, assuming you do. I don't know where you are listening to this talk, but assume whatever good things you have, this is the fruits of your good karma. Maybe largely from this life, but there'll be some from past life. But it's come through to help you right now. And the fact that you're interested enough to listen to a talk and study Buddhism, practice meditation maybe, this is all your good karma coming through to help you. But if we don't keep making good karma, we don't continue our practice, we don't continue to make merit or good karma, of course, well, we'll use it up, the old stuff will get used up, and then we'll be bankrupt, spiritually bankrupt, or bankrupt in terms of Dhamma, maybe. And that's possible. So why does someone get reborn as an animal? Well, maybe they've bankrupted themselves. They just stopped making the good karma, and they got particularly caught into wrong views, wrong understanding what is good and bad karma, what is a skillful way to live as a human being, what is not. And for one reason or another, they probably created a lot of negative karma through their life, maybe made their mind very dull for different reasons, they haven't developed the kind of qualities that would lead them back to a human rebirth. So then maybe reborn as an animal. This person who was asking the question today, they're also saying maybe it's partly as a result that nowadays everyone's infatuated or obsessed with animals. We make movies about them and write stories and do lots of social media clips about animals, which can be quite relaxing and fun. But it often leads us into some, our imagination can get the best of us sometimes, and we sort of attribute all these human qualities to animals, give them voices, and maybe more than that, make more out of them than's really there sometimes. And the danger this person was suggesting is that people may even aspire or wish to be reborn as an animal, which, according to the Buddhist teachings, and I'd say according to common sense as well, it just wouldn't make sense to want to be reborn as an animal, because animals have so much suffering. Human beings can have suffering, but they can also get out of their suffering, and that's the difference. And they do it to get out of suffering, they have much more available to them than animals do. But humans do get it wrong, and we do things that will lead to karma, make heavy karma that follows us around, and the Buddhist explanation would be some human beings maybe are reborn as animals. But karma is something you can look at every day as you practice watching your mind, and particularly if you meditate, you'll see karma at work straight away. Just a simple kind of natural law that if you have a skillful thought in mind, you consciously, intentionally bring up a skillful thought, meaning a thought, an intention rooted in generosity, kindness, mindfulness, or the reflective power of the mind, something bringing some knowledge, some understanding to you. If you bring up a skillful thought, it will immediately improve your state of mind. It will be accompanied by some subtle or greater good feeling. Feel at ease, feel good, maybe feel quite happy. And similarly, if you consciously, intentionally think an unskillful, unwholesome thought rooted in greed, anger, delusion, immediately your mind will start to suffer. It'll feel the effects of that. In one moment of an angry or selfish thought, is in one moment of darkness or unhappiness to experience, but many moments, well, that's many moments of unhappiness, even mental pain, anguish, and can of course lead on to karma being made through speech, through action as well. But this is something you can verify for yourself every day, and when you meditate, hopefully you're learning this lesson, how karma is affecting you. Your thoughts make up your experience of happiness and sadness right here, right now. Someone else was saying that the benefit of their Buddhist practice that they notice every day, the very least, every day in the morning, they meditate, they do some Buddhist chanting, they meditate, and then they go to work. And usually speaking, that puts them in a good, positive, wholesome frame of mind, at least for the first part of the day. And they go into work, and there's a good attitude towards the people they see, they meet, they wish them well, and they're hoping, at least wishing for things to go well in their day, for them to do their job, the people around them to be happy, healthy, successful. And they said in the old days, before they started practicing Buddhism on a regular basis, they noticed that when they often go into work, and just from the first moment they step into their workplace, already they've got a lot of negative thoughts coming up, which is probably a very common human thing, but they said it just colours the whole mental state for the rest of the day. Negative thoughts about this person, that person, based on past experiences, past interactions, projections onto people, worries, concerns, anger, whatever. But as they were starting to meditate and they were looking back at their own mind, taking more responsibility for their own mind, things started to improve, and they could see just how you set your mind up in the morning can change your whole feeling through the day. It doesn't take away problems and difficulties necessarily, the world is still the world, but your attitude and how you face the world changes and can change. That's karma, isn't it? That's the difference between good and bad karma on the mental level, just on the level of attitude, thinking. And that's something you learn you learn very quickly with meditation, because you start to see what's going on. Wholesome karma, unwholesome karma at work, how it affects you, how one wholesome, skillful thought can be a cause for another, and another, and another. And one unskillful thought can be a cause for another, and another, and another. And of course, sometimes the urges we have, sometimes based on different things that have happened to us, around us, sometimes the urges we experience as we meditate can be very strong. So, sometimes even in meditation we can have burning rage and a real strong mood of aversion or anxiety or just desire. You really want to think about something that you like, that you want, and so on. Sometimes stuff that comes up as you're meditating can be very strong, powerful moods and attractions and aversions. But even that can give you some lessons if you're in the right frame of mind, the frame of mind to learn. You're willing to learn, to teach yourself and learn from what's coming up, even when it's difficult and challenging. Because what it's teaching you is that, you have built up a whole set of attachments through your life, and you're seeing much of it as you meditate, aren't you? If something triggers you, it could be a memory or something, just triggers you and you start thinking about the thing that you desire. It could be a person, food, something you want to buy, an object, an item, some experience that you want to have, some pleasant experience, whatever. Something triggers you just to jogs your memory, jogs your mind, and you think about it, and then if the power of the attachment is strong enough, maybe that takes over for a few moments or many moments. And the imagination takes over, the fantasy, the desiring, fills your mind for a while. And as long as you acquiesce, you give in to that, it's actually reinforcing it. And that's even possible in meditation, even though that's the very opposite of what you're aiming to do in meditation. But it can happen because sometimes our mindfulness, our insight and understanding is weak, and the urges and the attachments we're experiencing are strong, and sometimes they're in command, in charge. It may take a long time before you sort of bring the mind back under control. And meditation can often be like that, a bit of a struggle, a bit of a battle between establishing the mind that's trying to establish mindfulness, reason with itself, and the mind that's just running after various objects, both attractive and things that cause us aversion or fear as well. The word we say that comes from the Pali is we delight in our greed, we delight in our aversion. We acquiesce, we give into it. Even when we know it's suffering, we still, out of habit and out of whatever reasoning we've believed in the past, we give into it. Partly we're just used to it. We're used to a certain way of thinking, a certain way of desiring, wanting, attaching. And so we just follow that, just like a familiar pattern, even though it can actually be quite obviously bringing us suffering, agitating us, making us feel unhappy. We just do it. We delight in getting angry. We delight in being anxious. We delight in wanting certain things that stimulate greed. We delight in all these more negative emotions. That's why we give into them. That's why they have a certain power over the mind. So part of meditation is countering that, bringing out mindfulness. First of all, just paying attention, watching. Even if you can't control your mind, when you're meditating, it's just thinking and thinking, and it seems out of control. But at least part of the mind can watch and observe, and sometimes that's all you can do for a while. But when I say observe or watch, I mean that's not just being totally passive. You're watching and learning from what you see, and even suffering that you're experiencing. You're in mental pain maybe, sometimes it's in reaction to physical pain, say if you have illness or your legs hurt or something. But even when you're experiencing pain, you can learn from that and learn from how you're reacting to it and what's going on. In a way, that's the same as when you look at media, social media or news or anything like that. You may see other people in pain, suffering. The important thing might be to look at whatever you're watching with the eye of wisdom, to observe and then learn from it, not just react again, reinforcing your attachments, liking, disliking, greed, aversion and so on, but try and learn from it. The things we experience externally, particularly on a screen, because so much of us spend time on a screen now. But then when you're meditating, you're doing the same, but watching your very own mental activity. And sometimes you have to tell yourself or teach yourself not to give in. You say, no, I'm not going to give in to this. And then also you look and learn how you can be stronger and why you shouldn't give in. One is get to see how whatever it is you're giving into is causing you suffering, agitation, reinforcing that habit. Also, as you observe, maybe you start looking a bit more carefully at whatever it is that attracts you or that fills your mind, and seeing the suffering or the disadvantages of what's going on. And also, we would say, come to the point where you can see the impermanence of it as well, because that helps you to let go, to give up attachments when you can see they're impermanent, meaning you don't have to just keep feeding them and holding on to them. You can actually let them go because they're impermanent. So much of our meditation is looking, learning, understanding, and then seeing how to free the mind from suffering and its causes. But of course, we have these moments when we're clear and it really works, and that's maybe what inspires us to keep practicing. We get energy from that. You let go of some desire, some greed, you let go of some worry, some anger. You've let go of it, your mind has become more calm, gone beyond whatever that was bothering you. When you know that, you get some confidence and feel happier. But then other times, you might say you fail. And in our society nowadays, we also give a lot of importance to failure, and we say, oh, I am a failure, I can't meditate. If you give in to your greed, your fantasy, your aversion, immediately you're not a good Buddhist, and you start bashing yourself maybe. So we also have to learn how to take failure as we're meditating and just accept, sometimes the wholesome states are stronger and we're developing them well, and sometimes they're not. Sometimes the unwholesome states of mind win the battle. But that's only a battle, it's not the whole war. So you can carry on practicing, and what can I learn from this? Even your failures you can learn from. And say, where did I go wrong? Why is this always get me every time? You keep doing that, you keep learning, even though sometimes you fail, you give in to your desires and your attachments. But maybe little by little over a long period of time, your mind does learn things and understands better what's going on. Eventually, the idea is that you start to tire or get bored or fed up with following mental states that cause you suffering, because you see that and nobody really wants to suffer. And one reason we still suffer with this mind, this untrained mind, is because we don't see what's going on, we don't fully recognize it. Another reason is we do see, but we're just not strong enough to uproot the causes of the suffering yet. We haven't practiced enough, we haven't got enough merit, you might say. But if you keep practicing over time, maybe a certain weariness of following ways of thinking, moods, holding on, attaching to moods that you know will bring you suffering, you start to tire of that. And there's no point. That little bit of happiness that I get from my fantasy, my imagination, doesn't last very long, distracts me, and keeps bothering me as long as I keep feeding it and holding on to it. It's just not worth it. It's actually more pleasant to let it go and rest in peace, maybe. Or that irritation, aversion, although you understand maybe why it comes up, for what the reasons are, the sort of external, superficial reasons are, but as an experience, irritation, aversion, anger, rage, whatever intensity it is, it's unpleasant. Over time, observing, watching that, you start to tire of being caught into unpleasant states of mind. And then you may value the peace of mind that comes from letting go more. And that should make the whole process easier to endure the unpleasant when it does take over the mind, but also keeps you going to the point where you can let it go, because you know you can let it go, and it's better if you do. These are the kind of inner knowledges that come through meditation. The knowledge of understanding where suffering comes from, how to deal with it, and why it's worth dealing with it. All of these are kind of knowledges you might call human knowledges, using your human birth in a skillful way to really free your mind from suffering, however long it takes. It's what you learn in meditation, and it's something that we can do as human beings. I wouldn't say it's impossible for animals to do that, but it's very hard for them to do anything like that. They can maybe appreciate a little bit of compassion and peace, but on a very limited level, I would say. Certainly they don't communicate very well, whereas human beings can. We can all do that, and that's why human beings over the ages have got enlightened, because they're willing to practice and willing to learn from their experience, teach, and willing to teach themselves. Ultimately we're aiming to be able to teach ourselves, because everything is teaching us if we open our mind to it through the practice. But we have to train in learning and how to make things into teachings rather than just give in to them all the time. And that's something you have to keep observing in yourself. If you keep giving in to these mental defilements, these more negative ways, they'll just bring you more suffering, bring you more attachment, which will bring you more suffering. It's cyclical, it's repetitive. If you are sitting down to meditate, just as we did just now, why is something bothering you? If you had something bothering you, well, because it's bothered you before. It's something you picked up along the way as you will journey through life. We're constantly picking up things. That's another way of looking at attachment. Things that the mind alights on. Like a bird flying and then touches down on a branch. Our mind is constantly touching down on things attaching to things, some pleasant and we like them, so we keep thinking about them and developing those thoughts. Some unpleasant things, and we keep developing those thoughts. But the mind keeps touching down on things. And so it keeps coming back up over and over again, because previously we've attached, we've given importance to that mood, that experience, that memory, and then it will come up again and again, as long as we're not very mindful, not observing what's going on. But as you practice, hopefully you start to appreciate a little bit more the mind that is free, not attaching to things, more peaceful, not holding on, not clinging on, not alighting or settling down on things, but actually staying free, at least for periods of time. And that's like the mind, as mindfulness becomes more continuous and the insight is working, you have some wisdom there, maybe just reminding you to let go, or seeing the disadvantages of holding on. As your wisdom comes up, you hold on less, you attach less, and then you can appreciate the mind that is free, peaceful more. And so you incline more towards that. As you incline more towards it, you get more used to it, you notice it more, because actually in our life we have many periods where the mind is going more to peace. Not much is bothering it, it's just often we miss them. We're so obsessed with doing things, thinking about doing things, activity, getting things, having things, getting rid of what we don't like. We're so obsessed with all that, we miss the periods where the mind is actually quite peaceful and resting in itself. But as you meditate more, generally you notice that you value it more, you incline more towards peace, you see it as a valuable thing for you in your life, in your experience. It's all right to have periods of your day when you're not doing very much, because you can just watch your mind and be enjoying that peace rather than having to do something at every moment, which generally agitates us, doesn't it? It makes us very agitated, anxious. Doesn't mean to say you become passive or have to become passive from meditation, but you appreciate peace when it's there in your mind, and that there are times when your mind is not caught into greed, anger, delusion, confusion. As you become more mindful, you become more clear. There are times when your mind is wholesome, times when it's in unwholesome states, times when the mind is peaceful, times when it's disturbed. But you're becoming clear on that. And you tend to move towards or value more the periods when the mind is peaceful, not causing suffering for itself. So then even in daily life, say in situations where you're forming attachments, you're getting annoyed with somebody or yourself in some situation, or some desire is being triggered because you see something or talk to someone and some idea or something comes up that triggers your desire. Another part of your mind is also going, hold on, this is an attachment forming, and maybe you notice it. Not always, because attachments form very easily and quickly, and they can be very subtle as well. But sometimes you may notice how attachments form, where your mind settles down on something, picks it up mentally and starts thinking about it, holding on to it, reacting to it. You'll notice that process more, particularly as you meditate more. And then you may even be able to start being more careful in how attachments form, or preventing them from forming in your mind, how preventing your mind going into anger before it's even happened or as it's happening, or going into lust, going into desire, going into anxiety before it's even happened or as it's happening, recognizing what you're doing. So again, learning, teaching yourself, and sometimes you just have to say, don't do that, don't think like that, don't do this particular action. Sometimes you have to make decisions. That's part of practice. But decisions based on wisdom, understanding. If I do this, I'm going to suffer more. Thinking in this way, reacting in this way, I suffer. Maybe I can just go quiet or let it go. So these are some of the skills you learn through meditation. You might call it basic Buddhist wisdom, and it's something that human beings can do. We have this potential, the potential to understand where suffering comes from, know that, and then free ourselves from suffering. You could say it's the greatest thing a human being can do. We're so obsessed with the material world now that we tend to see great human beings as people who can build things and develop great scientific discoveries, and people who can do great feats of endurance or sporting skills or art or creative things. It's all good, but somebody who can actually free their mind from suffering, I would have thought, should be number one on our priority list, or the list of lifting up human beings who do great things. So we call the Buddha, the qualities of a Buddha, great wisdom, great compassion, great purity, because it's a truly great thing to free a human mind from suffering. And it's not to diminish the other achievements of human beings in all the other fields and areas, but simply this must be the greatest one, to be free from greed, anger and delusion. Because even if you can make great scientific developments and economic discoveries and build things and do all kinds of things, if you're still getting angry, irritated, upset, you're still chasing your desires, maybe there's something still lacking in what you've done. So these tonight are just a few reflections on the potential of human beings, what it is to be human, what we can do as human beings. And we even wish it on each other. If you wish someone, say they're getting towards the end of their life, what do you wish for them? If someone does pass away, well, you wish for them to attain a human rebirth again, so they can carry on practicing towards enlightenment, towards nibbana. That might be the greatest wish you can have for another human being, to really realize their potential as a human being, to carry on all the way to freeing their mind from suffering. So I'll end the talk there, and afterwards, if there's any questions, we can talk about them.